3 years ago, Moon Lake Pack, once a proud member of Lupus Celestial, the Central Pack Alliance, lost everything in a brutal defeat to the rogue packs that had long plagued us. The Leakin King believed my father, the Alpha of Moon Lake, had conspired with the rogues, and our pack paid the price. My father and I were enslaved and cast out, becoming the laughingstock of all the packs. Even my mate, Chase, turned his back on me. But 3 years later, I was sent back to Lupus Celestial by Chase's order, just as he was preparing to bond with his future Luna. Everyone assumed I had returned to sabotage the ceremony. Taryn, do you still think you stand a chance of becoming his Luna? Chase never liked you. He's always adored Wynette. Why would you show up now, just before he bonds with his mate? Warnings, veiled threats, and even silent beatings made one thing painfully clear. I was not welcome. And Chase, the one I had once believed was my fated mate, the one I'd felt an unexplainable pull toward, stood by, cold and detached, watching it all in silence. His eyes held nothing but loathing. You still think you can live freely outside Lupus Celestial after betraying us time and again? What exactly are you plotting at my bonding ceremony? I let out a bitter laugh and wiped the blood from my lips. He didn't know my wolf had been gravely wounded by a silver dagger, and I didn't have much time left. Don't worry. If I hadn't been dragged back, I'd never have returned. And if I truly wanted to cause trouble, I'd have killed myself first. Chase didn't respond. He just scoffed. But when I walked away from his pack, from his world, he was the one who crumbled. He begged me to return, as if losing me shattered something deep inside him. Chapter 1. I finally arrived at Hill Pack, the heart of Lupus Celestial. Chase was already waiting at the port, standing beside a sleek black limousine. Tall, broad-shouldered, and exuding dominance, he looked every bit the future Leakin King. But even from a distance, I could tell he was growing impatient. I approached slowly. "Brother Chase," I said softly. He froze. His sharp eyes scanned me, stunned by what I had become. I looked down, clutching my hands together to avoid his gaze. He had never imagined that the gaunt, scarred girl before him was once the proud daughter of Moon Lake's Alpha, now just a shell, ragged, dirt-smeared, and barely recognizable. "So you're really Taryn," he said coldly. Then, with no sympathy, he began complaining about my decision to arrive by ship rather than by plane, as if even that was a personal offense. He drove. I sat silently in the back seat. The air between us was heavy with everything unsaid. I used to cling to him like ivy clings to stone, desperate for warmth. But Chase never returned even the faintest kindness. When my father and I were accused of treason and cast out, he severed our bond with terrifying ease. Now I kept to myself, quiet, unmoving, the kind of silence you learn in pain. A plush wolf dangled from the front passenger seat, soft, childish, and familiar. I glanced at it briefly before looking away. Of course, that seat must belong to Wynette, his Luna-to-be. My stomach twisted. I had been about to take that seat, but that silly plush had reminded me I didn't belong here anymore. I quickly pulled back. Even breathing too loudly felt like a mistake. "Don't play games like you used to," Chase said abruptly. "I only had you brought back because my grandmother misses you. Behave and don't overthink this." I met his eyes in the rearview mirror, forcing a bitter smile. So nothing had changed. He still believed I and my father had betrayed the alliance. He still despised me. Yet he waited 3 years to mention his grandmother, and did so on the eve of his engagement? Of course, it wasn't care. It was control. I touched the fading scars along my arm, my wolf barely surviving under the silver wound. What was the point in explaining now? I began, then swallowed the question I'd wanted to ask for so long. Maybe I had stopped caring. "Chase, that," he cut me off. "Call me Alpha. We're not close. You're here to visit my grandmother, not because you're part of this pack." I stared at him, too stunned to respond. My lips parted, but no words came. I nodded instead. How is your grandmother? He didn't answer, but the shadow in his eyes said enough. I tightened my fists in my lap, thinking of the few people who had once loved me. Most were gone now. Chase's grandmother might be the last one left in this cruel world who cared whether I lived or died. Chapter 2. When we arrived at Chase's old chateau, his grandmother was still asleep. I sat quietly by her bedside, eyes tracing the tubes and wires connecting her fragile body to the life-sustaining machines. I reached out and gently held her hand, trying to warm her cold skin with my palms. She stirred slightly, then slowly curled her fingers around mine. "Granny," I whispered, voice trembling as if she were my real grandmother, the only person left who had ever loved me without condition. I fought hard not to cry. "Gwen, take her for a bath," Chase said. After hours of exhausting travel, I must have looked wretched. I knew I looked dirty and weak, enough to disgust him. I lowered my head silently and followed Gwen into the bathroom. The space was huge, pristine, and elegant. Steam curled above the bathtub, infused with fresh herbs. "Miss Taryn, you may take off your clothes now," Gwen said politely. I hesitated. "Thank you. I'll manage it myself. Please wait outside." She paused for a moment, then quietly left, closing the door behind her. For a few seconds, I just stood there. Then, faint voices drifted through the door. "Alpha, Miss Taryn insists on doing it herself." Chase scoffed. "Keep an eye on her. She's filthy, like some animal dragged in from a muddy swamp." I froze. For a moment, I couldn't move. Then, slowly, I undressed. Reflections stared back at me from the mirror. All bones and bruises, scars stretched across skin that no longer belonged to the girl I used to be. I reached down, my fingers brushing the worst one, the jagged silver dagger wound across my waist, like a centipede burned into flesh. It still hurt, a lot, but soon I wouldn't feel pain anymore. And I didn't care. After the bath, I nearly bumped into Chase as I stepped out. Startled, I stepped back, keeping my eyes low. His eyes narrowed with disdain. "Don't you have anything decent to wear? Are you dressed like this just to break Granny's heart?" I blinked, light-headed and dizzy. I barely had the strength to stand. "I'm sorry," I whispered. "I didn't bring anything better, but these clothes are clean." Gwen frowned. "This dress, it looks so loose. Isn't it a small size?" I glanced up and met Chase's eyes. Cold and passive as always. I let out a dry laugh, trying to sound casual. "I've been dieting too hard. I'll gain some weight back soon." Gwen looked at me, visibly confused. "Dieting?" Chase interrupted her. "Take her to the fitting room. Get her some proper clothes." He turned away, likely about to mock me again, but his phone rang. I caught the name on the screen, Winnie. He answered. "Chase, shall we have dinner tomorrow night?" "Fine. I'll meet you tomorrow." I quietly walked toward the porch. The lighting was dim. Only a few sconces flickered in the dark, casting long shadows. But here, in the dark, I felt more at peace. Somewhere along the line, I had stopped fearing shadows. They made it easier to disappear, to be forgotten. They made it easier to survive. I could still hear the soft murmur of his voice from the call, tender in ways he never was with me. It hurt, not because he loved someone else, but because he never tried to understand me. 3 years ago, when my father and I were hunted like criminals, I'd escaped and made my way to Hillpack alone, nearly dying in the snow. I begged on my knees. He refused to even give me a place to rest. He didn't send help. He didn't believe me. He thought I'd faked it all, that I had plotted with the rogues to betray my own blood. And because of that, Moonlake fell. Our home was lost. My family was broken. My wolf was wounded beyond healing. And he never once asked why. Chase stepped out onto the porch. He looked at me. I looked back. His gaze was sharp, dissecting, like he was trying to pull out a confession with his eyes alone. "You've been scheming something ever since you arrived," he said. "You haven't changed at all." I blinked slowly. What do you mean? I was just wondering where I'm going to sleep tonight. Lies, he snapped. You're still the same manipulative girl. If I can't see through you, I don't deserve to be Leakin King. I backed away instinctively. He was still so quick to condemn. Still so sure I was the villain in a story he never cared to read. Chase, is it okay if I call you that? I asked softly. I've always respected you, whether as Chase or as Alpha. My voice didn't shake this time. I hope you don't worry too much about me. Even if I have thoughts, they have nothing to do with you. Nothing I'd ever dare act on. He stepped forward, grabbed my chin in his hand. Really, he hissed. You were always like this, two-faced. You acted sweet in front of me and stabbed Wynette in the back. I've never met anyone more deceitful. His grip was cruel, and my breath caught in my throat. He didn't let go, not until I nearly passed out. When he did, I collapsed against the wall, coughing, tears rising unbidden in my eyes. I wanted to ask, did you ever investigate? Did you ever stop to wonder what really happened? But instead I whispered, I'll stay somewhere else tonight. I'll come back to visit Granny tomorrow. I turned to leave, my hand trembling as it gripped the banister, but he grabbed my collar and yanked me back. Cut the act. Once Granny knows you visited, you're leaving. He turned and stormed down the stairs, out of the chateau, out of my world once again. Chapter 3. The other day, Granny woke up, her mind surprisingly clear for a while. She gently placed her hand over mine and called me with joy. Sweetheart, my precious. I turned my face away, wiping at the tears silently rolling down my cheek. Granny, please stay safe and sound. Once you're better, we can sit under the sunset together again. She smiled faintly, said nothing, and soon slipped back into a deep coma. She hadn't woken since. Later, I fell asleep in my room, drained and exhausted. A noise in the hallway stirred me. When I stepped out, I saw a couple standing with their backs to me. Chase, where's Taryn? The she-wolf asked. Chase turned his head slightly. The woman followed his gaze and saw me. Taryn. She approached quickly, grabbing my hand. It's really you, but you look so pale, so weak. I looked down. Around her wrist was the moonstone bracelet, an heirloom from Chase's clan. She must be Wynette. What's wrong with you? Chase snapped, stepping forward. She's going to be my Luna. You should be showing respect, not ignoring her like this. He glared at me as if Wynette had suffered some deep humiliation just because I didn't bow and scrape. I offered Wynette a polite smile and said softly, Are you here to visit Granny? She's upstairs. Yes, she said, glancing up the staircase. It's been a long time since I last saw her. Wait for me here, okay? We've already reserved dinner. She went up. Chase remained in the hall, eyes still fixed on me. I turned away, avoiding his stare, but my mouth moved before I could stop it. Congratulations on finding your Luna and on the bonding ceremony. He scoffed. You care too much about my bonding ceremony. Still want to deny you're here to scheme something. His eyes sharpened. Taryn, if you so much as touch Wynette or harm any member of this pack again, I won't let you leave here alive. A hollow ache spread through my chest, making it hard to breathe. I responded numbly, You're overthinking. My wolf is already too broken to fight even in Omega. But he didn't hear me, or he simply chose not to. I didn't go to dinner with them. I told when I had some personal matters to attend to. In truth, I was broke and still bound to the rogue wolves' control. They hadn't allowed me to return alone. I was still their slave. I bartended at night to make money for them. Every cent I earned was taken by the werewolf assigned to shadow me. Leave me some for transport, I begged, grabbing his sleeve. He kicked me hard in the stomach. What the hell do you expect with that pitiful amount? I curled on the ground, pain exploding through my body. Don't forget why you're here, he sneered. You're here to borrow money from the Leakin King for your freedom. You know what happens if you fail. Another brutal kick hit my face. I lay there, half conscious, praying for death to come quickly. When I finally returned to the old chateau, it was past 3 a.m. Gwen opened the door and gasped. Miss Tarrant, what happened? I covered my face. Don't worry, I fell on the way back. I was too tired to lie well, too exhausted to care. All I wanted was sleep. Someone came down the stairs, tall, broad-shouldered. I knew who it was before I looked up. Chase. He hadn't stayed here last night. Why was he back now? Stand still. I stepped into the shadows, avoiding the light. What is it? He narrowed his eyes and marched over, gripping my shoulders firmly. What happened to your face? His aura, too powerful, too close, made it hard to breathe. I fell. You fell. His voice was sharp. Where were you? It's almost dawn. He tightened his grip. His presence was suffocating, his black silk pajama doing nothing to soften the menace in his eyes. I struggled weakly, but he wouldn't let go. Pain burned through me again, fresh and sharp. I couldn't take it, so I tilted my face up and stepped closer, drawing in the scent of his breath. I stared into those piercing, dark blue eyes. Are you worried about me? His eyes flickered. Doubt cracked his expression. He turned away. I was about to say more, something reckless, when he abruptly shoved me back. Shut up, he snapped. No one would care about a two-faced liar like you. My back slammed into the wall. My wolf howled inside me from the pain. I slumped in the shadows, watching him walk away. My heart didn't hurt anymore. It was just tired. So tired. Chapter 4. For the next few days, I continued working the night shift at the bar. Chase would occasionally return to the old chateau, but even when we crossed paths in the early hours of the morning, he acted like I didn't exist. He never mentioned the new scars on my body, never asked, never looked twice. He was the same as ever, cold, distant, untouchable. Perhaps he was afraid that if he showed even a shred of concern, I would cling to him again, like some nuisance that couldn't let go. He wanted boundaries, a clear, brutal line drawn between us. I understood, and I accepted it. It was easier to be invisible, safer. I had long since stopped wishing for anything else. Every night, when I stood under the shower and looked down at the fading wounds and fresh scars, I'd be reminded of everything I'd endured over the past 3 years. I thought about it a lot. I still didn't understand how things had turned out this way. Stories of rogue wolves overthrowing entire packs and enslaving them had always sounded like distant legends, nightmares meant to scare pups. But then it happened to us. I almost lost my wolf that night. I was slashed with a silver dagger. The pain had been unbearable. At first I was terrified, but over time the pain dulled. The fear faded. I went numb to it all, until even torture became just another part of life. And someday soon, I would join my parents underground. That night, I returned from bartending later than usual. The door to the study was open. Chase was inside working. I paused at the threshold, staring down at the fresh scar across my hand. The one I got tonight when someone shoved me to the ground and my skin scraped against the bar floor. He looked calm tonight, almost gentle, maybe due to the dim glow of the study lamp. The light was softer here, not so harsh and cold. Some strange impulse nudged me forward. I told myself, just once, just try. Soon I would leave. The old chateau, Hill Pack, Lupus Celestial. None of this had ever belonged to me. I was just a guest, a tolerated outsider, and it was time I disappeared quietly. As I stepped closer, Chase sensed me. He looked up and met my gaze. I took a breath. Chase, he raised an eyebrow, clearly irritated. What is it? Speak. I forced myself to stay calm as I walked into the room. Chase, is it possible that the words caught in my throat? My palms were damp. He narrowed his eyes, waiting. That you could lend me $5 million? He frowned, confused. What? Of course, he didn't understand. Of course it sounded absurd. I could see the impatience on his face, written in every line. What was I even thinking? He would be the next Leakin king, heir to vast lands and fortune. But none of that was for someone like me. He wouldn't use a single coin to save me. I knew that. I knew it 3 years ago. I smiled faintly, playing it off. Forget it. Just joking. It's late, good night. Back in my room, I couldn't sleep. Even with my body aching from exhaustion, my mind wouldn't quiet. There was a door that opened onto the backyard. I stepped outside. Soft lights illuminated the yard. I sat quietly on a bench and closed my eyes, hoping for peace. But a prickling sensation made me open them again. A butterfly had landed gently on my hand, right on the fresh scar. It had brushed the wound as if trying to soothe it with its wings. I watched it cautiously, not daring to move. Was it here to heal me? Was it a message? From Mom? From Dad? The Moon Lake pack had fallen into ruin. My parents died within a year of our enslavement. The rogue packs, lawless groups without territory, formed by exiles, traitors, and criminals, had claimed our land. 3 years ago, they took everything from us. The butterfly fluttered its wings and rose into the air. I stood up, slowly returning to my room. Just as I reached the door, I saw something out of the corner of my eye. The light in Chase's study went out. At the exact same moment, I hadn't imagined it. Chapter 5. The next morning, I suddenly remembered something important and went upstairs to find Chase. He was on the phone. Mom, he said. His mother's voice was clearly audible through the speaker. Chase, your father has finalized the other pack affairs. We'll be back soon. That means we can host your bonding ceremony with Wynette after all. I'm so glad you found your Luna. My feet froze in place. I had told myself that I was fine with him not being mine, that I could handle it, but hearing that bonding ceremony was like a dagger to the chest. My wolf whimpered from the depths of my soul, crushed by grief, so intense I could hardly breathe. Without knocking, I turned and hurried downstairs. I needed to see Grandma. Chase didn't leave the house all day. I checked the calendar. No wonder it was the weekend. By sunset, he came to find me. Follow me, he ordered. I frowned. Why? Follow me, and you'll find out. I glanced at Grandma, who was lying in bed. She shook her head at me, subtly warning me. Not to go. You don't want me to? I whispered. Even so, I followed Chase. I didn't know why. Maybe part of me still hoped for an explanation, or maybe a goodbye. His limousine was freezing. I shivered the whole way there. He didn't say a word, only turned the air conditioner down even lower. When we arrived, I realized it was a werewolf club. He stepped out and walked straight in. I followed tightly behind, unsure and uneasy. The club was cold, dim, and hostile. The moment I entered the private room he led me to, my heart sank. It was filled with wolves who had hated me since the academy, wolves I'd once been forced to clash with. I turned to Chase, fury rising for the first time in years. Chase, what is the meaning of this? I confused. He didn't even glance at me. Instead, he removed his jacket and sat down in the center of the room. And then laughter, loud, cruel, echoing from every corner. Taryn? Is this really her? She used to be so proud and elegant. Look at her now, what a mess. I heard her father died and her pack lost everything. But hey, at least the rogues treated her well. They circled around me like vultures. I pushed past them, stumbling toward the door. But someone yanked me back by my collar. A cold voice stopped me in my tracks. Did I say you could leave? I turned. My eyes locked onto the throne-like seat in the center. Chase sat there. Wynette was beside him, silent, smiling faintly, the picture of obedience. What a perfect couple. I smiled, bitterly wavering my head. Why did you bring me here? He answered without emotion. When the Moon Lake pack was still powerful, you were arrogant. You bullied everyone here at the academy, especially Wynette. You owe them an apology. Drink a glass for each of them. I looked at the table. It wasn't just a few glasses. It was dozens, each one filled with potent spirits. Not ordinary wine. These were dangerous, even for a healthy wolf. My wolf was already weak, barely holding on. I inhaled shakily. What if I refuse? One of them leaned in, voice dripping with mockery. Taryn, you have no pack now. No name. No power. You sure you want to make enemies again? I don't remember how I made it back. Everything was a blur. My head spinning. My stomach lurching. I was burning up, the world tilting sideways. I wanted to throw up. I wanted it to end. I wanted to die. Why was I still alive? Dawn came at last. I forced myself upright, watching the sun rise through the window. My balance was off. I nearly fell twice. I knew it was time. Time to go. There was nothing left here for me. Only Grandma. And even she would be better off not watching me suffer anymore. I packed quietly, tidied my room. I walked down the hall, silent as a shadow. No one else was awake. I climbed the stairs one last time to see Grandma. She was sleeping soundly. I knelt beside her and whispered, Grandma, take care, okay? I have to leave now. Her body shifted slightly. I reached for her hand, and she gripped mine weakly. Tears spilled from my eyes, but in the end I let go. As I stepped out of her room, I passed Chase's door. I glanced at it once, just once, and then I walked away, out of the old chateau. I didn't look back. Chase, from now on, I'll never let you hurt me again, and you'll never be troubled by my presence, either. I reached the gate, my heart steeled for the road ahead. But just as I stepped beyond the boundary, a shadow appeared, blocking my path. A voice, cold as frost, cut through the silence. Where do you think you're going? Chapter 6. View of Chase. Taryn died. News of a young she-wolf taking her life by jumping into the sea was widespread in Lupus Celestial. She was engulfed by water in a moment. The witness reported to werewolf warriors cruising in patrol. Days of searching her body were all in vain. The media of Lupus Celestial noted that her case was not suicide. She was controlled by a group of rogue wolves. She was followed and tortured by them even when she was in Hill Pack, the center of Lupus Celestial. Compared with being seized back and controlled again by that evil group, she would rather jump into the sea and end her life directly. Some of those rogue wolves were arrested. The fact that they harassed and enslaved the pack of Taryn was revealed, and the fact that Moon Lake Pack had never betrayed Lupus Celestial was dug out. I listened to daily news from TV. I realized that I made huge mistakes 3 years ago. I should have trusted Taryn. Back in the time of the Werewolf Academy, everyone said that she was the kind of she-wolf who was spoiled by her parents, and her dad, Alpha of Moon Lake Pack, was not trusted by my father either due to rumors alike. Alpha! Alpha! My beta poked me with his finger on my shoulder. Then I found myself sitting in the office before the desk, but my mind was still about what happened to Taryn. I looked at my beta. Is it possible that Taryn is still alive? I asked. Alpha, there is a union council meeting ahead. You don't eat anything for days. Have some food and beverages before the meeting. I shook my head. I get the feeling that Taryn is still alive. I don't accept her death. Everything seems so unreal. How could she die without my permission? Alpha. The beta tried to stop me from this chaotic and unconscious mumbling. I stood up and left the office in a hurry. I drove to where Taryn jumped off the cliff and into the sea. Black, mounting cliff. This was the place where Taryn jumped off in despair. Wait a minute. It was not what had happened. She was not completely forced to. I missed some important info. That day, some werewolf was shooting a video, which happened to record what had happened. Her wolf was running, followed by some other tightly. But by the edge of the cliff, she shifted back into human shape and walked slowly. With her back towards the sea, she stretched out her arms and retreated a few steps, falling into the water. What was presented on her face was clearly a sense of relief, a relief that she let go of everything in this world. At night, it rained at the seashore. I stood there soaked up. I looked at waves swirling, eyes sore and swollen. I approached the seashore step by step. At that time, someone called my name from behind. Chase, what are you doing? Frozen wind blew over. I turned around to find my parents standing there. They dragged me away from the sea and stuffed me into the vehicle. What were you doing just now? I called out to you several times, but you did not respond a bit. I sat in the vehicle speechless. With windows closed, it was warm inside the vehicle. With my parents by my side, we were still a complete family. But why, inside my heart, it was as freezing as outside of the window. Let's go home first. Mother said. The vehicle took us away from the seashore. Mother tapped me on my back. You've been too busy lately. We asked Gwen to book an air ticket to some nice place for you. You better take a leave. I closed my eyes. Never mind, I would go nowhere. Mother seemed to have some more issues to discuss. But my father stopped her by his facial expressions. I closed my eyes for a while, but opened in sudden panic. Ever since what happened to Taryn, images of her lying back and falling into the sea would appear before my eyes, automatically and relentlessly. The thought of her letting go of everything was depressing and suffocating. That morning, I woke up to find it was way too quiet in the old chateau. Before long, Gwen came back with materials for meals. Recalling what had happened the night before, I was a bit worried about Taryn. So I asked Gwen to see if everything was fine with her. Gwen entered her room, but stepped out quickly. Miss Taryn is not inside the room. Then she might be in my granny's, I told her. Gwen went upstairs, but came back quickly, shaking her head at me. There were many rooms in the old chateau. It was not something big if we could not find her in one or two of them. But at that moment, my heart thumped fast heavily. Gwen noticed changes in my face, searching for Taryn throughout the old chateau. No one answered. No one ever answered. My heart was in tension. I had a bad feeling. I checked the monitor records. I saw her leaving the old chateau at 6:15 a.m. with her bag on her shoulder. My body shivered in panic. Taryn had left? She just left without notifying me? I went to her bedroom, pulling out the desk drawer. Lying there was a bank check of $10 million. She did not notice it. She needed this badly. Why would she leave without taking the bank check? And she drank so much wine last night. How could she have the strength to stand still and leave? My silly she-wolf. Leave in such a way. On realizing that she had left me, my heart ached. I watched every record on that morning. She went to visit Granny before she left, while I, whom she adored so profoundly, deserved not even a goodbye. My heart became empty. A wave of intense sadness suddenly gripped me. My silly she-wolf. Didn't you sense that I realized that I do care about you? I was pulled to you. I was delighted to see you every night in the old chateau. I guess you encountered trouble, judging by new scars on your skin every day. If you need money, I give you. I took you to meet old friends. I was not as bad as you thought. I just hoped you could stay here in Hillpack and make a reconciliation with everyone. I thought after that night of reconciliation, no one would cause trouble against you any longer. I was punished. I lost her forever. It was too late to chase my heart, my real feelings. I locked myself in the room. Only when I punched the wall I would feel a little bit of relief. Wynette came. Chase, what happened? I looked at her, with cigars in my hand one by one. As for our bonding ceremony, we should cancel it. No, Chase, I don't want to. I stood up and walked away from her. I thought I hated Taryn. She was always noisy, goofing around me. I thought I didn't like her. For a long time, I didn't know what feeling is the right feeling I should have for my Luna. I thought I was into quiet she-wolf like you. But ever since Taryn came back, I knew I was wrong. What I have for you is only respect. I looked at the dark gray sky outside. Why is it that when I finally realized who my Luna is, she died? No, she must still be alive in the world. Taryn was dead, but in the werewolf world, Luna is destined by fate. Chase, we understand your feelings, but Taryn is dead. I denied every word of saying that she was dead. No, she is my Luna. She is still alive. What if her body was found? Wynette is also a good girl. I shuddered from the pain. It was hot cigar ashes falling on my hand. If her body was found, I would follow where she is. Splat. Mom slapped my face and left. I watched raindrops falling constantly. My heart ached again. I pressed cigar ashes onto my palm. Did it hurt? Was Taryn hurt? Chapter 7. I told the beta to investigate and report on what happened to Moon Lake Pack and Taryn in the past 3 years in detail. I was reluctant to read the report when everything was presented clearly. The beta suggested not reading it. Alpha, it's hard to believe what happened. I took a deep breath, locking that document into the drawer. List out those assholes. I will revenge for Taryn. Part of them were already arrested. I deployed warriors to arrest the rest. The ceremony with Wynette was cancelled for a long time. I thought I would crack up for quite a long time, but only months after her leave I recollected my mind, and the ascension ritual proceeded as planned. My parents stepped away and started traveling around the world. At the tea break of Union Council meetings, some alphas of member packs tried to introduce their daughters or sisters. I showed no interest and warned them to never bring up this again. I was still waiting for Taryn to come back. Clan members were worried about me. Some of them believed that this was what I owed to Taryn. One day, I was at the club. Voices of Wynette and her friend came out of the room. I did not mean to eavesdrop, but I was there waiting for an alpha of member pack. How are you now, Wynette? Not good. I love him only, and the ceremony was so close. Then, he told me what he felt for me was only respect. Well, Taryn is the only one to be blamed. She picked a perfect time to die, exactly before the ceremony. She should be dead even earlier with her dad. God knows how she managed to come back to Hill Pack, meddling with my happiness. Wynette said indignantly, back in the Werewolf Academy, we framed her a lot, spreading rumors of her bullying others. Nobody wanted to be friends with her, including Chase. Wynette, you are always the one who is quiet and accomplished. But for this accident, you are already the Luna of Leakin King. Now what? She is already dead. No one wins over a dead lover in a wolf's heart. I'd better stop pretending to be quiet, accomplished, or considerate. He would never see me again. Even my dad would blame me for failing. I could not make it happen. The alpha I was waiting for came. Sorry I'm late. I smiled at him. Never mind. Inside the room was quiet suddenly. I took over a cigar from him, fingertip trembling. What a plot. I was misled by rumors, so I had a hard time figuring out my real feelings about Taryn. A year later, Pack of Wynette lost a large portion of its territory and property, which were merged into its neighboring packs. Lupus Celestial was not harmed as a whole union. I poured myself a glass of treasured wine. The same thing happened to packs of Wynette's sisterhood. Alpha, Wynette was arranged to bond with Alpha of a primitive foreign pack. I snorted. Wow, is someone trying to bail her out? It's a pack from the forest with considerable territory, but the Alpha is 15 years older than Wynette, and he is said to be violent and brutal. I felt satisfied with this result. Wynette left Lupus Celestial a year later and joined the pack from the forest. I devoted all my energy to running Lupus Celestial, wishing to make it the most wonderful pack union ever. That alpha boating with Wynette was ambitious. He wanted those lost territories of the pack of Wynette back. He was just dreaming about things impossible. By the floor-to-ceiling window, I poured another glass of red wine, watching the crimson setting sun cut by the horizon. Taryn, where were you? Did you wish to stay outside forever? I wanted you to come back and be my Luna. Thoughts like this streamed constantly like a creek. But every time I looked back, it was always only me. Taryn seemed to be determined that she would not forgive me and would not come back. I signed. My silly Luna, you were not around. So all I could do was to make Lupus Celestial a better place, so that when you come back I could show you around new territories, and the land of your pack, I reclaimed them all. The sun was devoured by the horizon, changing the day into another night of darkness. Chapter 8. One day, a rogue wolf who has persecuted Taryn was released. He behaved well in wolf jail to earn early release. This made my life a bit more interesting. Let me see how he behaved well. The gate of the warehouse was opened. I entered. It was disgusting with the smell of blood-mixing urine. I beg mercy from you. I don't know what I did wrong. I was just released from jail. He tried to grab me. I stepped away and grinned over his hand. He screamed out. Soon, he was unable to make any noise. I stayed for a while and left. The gate was closed, blocking light from the darkness inside. For years went by. Granny was in a deep coma all day long. The wolf healer informed us that she might sleep like this forever. Mom looked at me. I could read a lot from her worried face, but she did not speak a word. I sat by the bedside of Granny, holding her hands. Granny, she came to fare you well before she left. Do you have any idea where she might be? Granny, if you wake up, please leave a note on where she went to. I know you are waiting for me to find my Luna and have pups with her. Only then you could rest in peace. As long as you tell me where she is, I will go through bonding ceremony with her immediately, as you always wish for. Tears streamed from her closed eyes. She heard every word I had said, but was unable to say anything. She moved her hand, trying to grab mine. This was all she could do. I sat for a while, tears brimming my eyes, and left. I took a cigar out. Father appeared behind me, uttering, "Come with me." In the study room, Dad. He turned around to face me, looking at me quietly. Are you aware of how many bad habits you have developed in the past few years? You became alcoholic, smoked all day. Are you trying to ruin your health? Dad, it's not that bad. He snorted coldly. I heard what you said with Granny. With 4 years passing, you should have forgotten her. I looked to the ground. Dad, is there anything else? I have a video meeting soon, so if not, I would go back to my room now. I hope you can accept the fact that Taryn was dead and would not come back. Why you are so stubborn. I clenched my fist. Dad, I must leave now. The spring hunt on the first full moon night of the new year. I bought a flight ticket to travel to a newly established pack. During spring hunt, werewolves and Lupus Celestials celebrate the births of pups and get engaged. But werewolves here were not celebrating the first full moon of spring because it was a pack in the region where winter was the only season throughout the year. I wandered along the street, from one spot to another. I wandered to a spacious square by the sea. It was populated with werewolves. The sea was not far away. Young couples leaned against the railing, shooting photos. Some of them asked me to help take photos of them. I could not refuse requests from lovely wolf couples. I stood on my own, looking far away. The phone kept ringing. The first one was from my parents. Mom. Young alphas are engaged to their Luna, and they are having soul moon wine. What are you doing? I smiled at the phone. I will go to a grocery store to find some red wine. Mom laughed at my words, said some other stuff, and ended the call. Then it was from my beta. Alpha, where have you been? I just visited your parents, and your mom told me you are in some newly established pack area. I'm having my vacation, so I go to some place far away. Where is it? Some cold place where there is only winter. Will you come? He answered quickly. No, I'm busy with spring hunt. Okay, you busy. Goodbye. Ended the phone call. I felt that something was tearing my heart. So painful. Taryn! How I wish you were here with me. Snowing all year in this place, but without you it was not romantic, it was only coldness and loneliness. I stood by the sea for a long time. After Taryn jumped into the sea, I became sensitive to where there was water. A magic power was pulling me to be closer to the water, so that I could be closer to her. Click. Someone took a photo from behind. I turned around. A she-wolf gave me a photo and told me that she was doing it for anything bad. She took the photo because she read a story from me, standing alone by the sea. I took the photo and looked closely. It was an image of my back, against the sea horizon. I was about to throw it away, but my wolf stopped me. Some others were in that photo. A she-wolf with long hair was there. That was the side face of Taryn. My hand trembled uncontrollably. Taryn? It was her. I looked through the square, trying to find her. Dozens of meters away, she was holding some books, leaving the square. I chased after her. All of a sudden, more wolves poured into the square, blocking my way. Taryn! Taryn! I called her name out loudly, but she didn't hear. I waded through the crowd to catch her. I chased her through the road. She was heading for the moon chamber. I was only meters away from her. I won't lose her again. A large patch of trees was before the moon chamber, with leaves all turned yellow falling in the air. The she-wolf stopped before a tree, looking above. She was wearing a white coat and a scarlet scarf. Her hair was not pinned, cascading naturally over her shoulder. I wanted to greet her, but was reluctant to disturb her. It was her. It must be her. I wouldn't be wrong. She was about to leave. I yelled in thrill, "Taryn, I love you!" She stopped there. The breeze blew over, ruffling through her hair.